how the commodities have been trading in the global markets. But remember, we take cues exactly from that. And to make sense of that in the Indian prices, we are now joined by Naveen Mathur, who's Associate Director, Commodities and Currencies at Angel. Naveen, hi. Always good to have you. What's the sense that you're making of the prices in the crude oil to start with? I mean, we have been making higher highs, but is it looking sustainable to you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Manisha. I think the markets are stabilizing at around $35 to $37 for the Brent. What Eugene just said, I actually vouch for that. There were too much of buildup of negative noises around crude, and I think the kind of OPEC and the Russia talks we are hearing about, if actually the production cut really happens, we may see the prices moving to a trajectory of around $45 or so, Manisha. So overall, the fundamentals are, although a little bit range bound, both the negative and the positive side. But what you said at the start of the show itself is that have we made a low of $26 the last month in January, start of the year? I think so, because what has been discounted in for the prices have already been there in the market. So I think the markets have bottomed out at around $25 some time back, and we are seeing markets. If you see the last price trend, we are seeing markets bouncing up to around $33, $35, and they are stabilizing at around these levels. So I think overall, pretty much a range-bound movement. Depends upon how the Saudi talks with Russia goes on, but around $35 to $37 would be something where the US crude or the Brent would stabilize. For intraday, we would recommend the markets to be on the long side. The March contract on the crude oil can be initiated at around 2310 levels or so. Stop loss to be put in for this trade at around 2260, and targets on the upside can be seen in a range of around 2390 to 2400 levels.
Naveen, what's your sense coming in for the base metal space? Because, I mean, would you say it has surprised you on the higher side, or you think it was incoming because of the kind of shorts that the positions were playing with? And from here on, are we looking at a directional trade on the higher side, or is it going to be quite choppy, taking cues from the global markets?
Manisha, absolutely right. I think the point you spoken about the stimulus from China plus the budget in India have given a bounce back to the markets in India. At the same time, the positive cues coming in that may more stimulus coming from the Chinese National People Congress meet coming up looks like to be that the sentiments have been there for the markets to go on the upside, and therefore we are seeing the prices moving around to a higher level. Also, if you see from the last couple of weeks, the financial markets have stabilized. The kind of uncertainty which we were talking about China has eased out. We also don't have a negative news coming out from the Eurozone. At the same time, we don't have something negative coming out from the US too. So I think overall the financial markets also have actually taken it on the positive note, and therefore the base metal pack, as they are corollary to the industrial demand, has become pretty positive. So overall, therefore, the markets tend to be on the upside, and we recommend the strategy to be on the buy for the intraday. The copper contract on the MCX for the month of April can be bought in at around 326.27 levels. 323 would be the stop loss, and targets to be put in for this trade at around 333, 334 levels. Also, one of the data pointers which have come out from the LME definitely states that longs have gone pretty high to around 21,000 lots. So that also is a positive fundamental news for the copper, and therefore the buy position recommended for the day.
Just the same question that I put to Eugene also. Would you think that nickel perhaps is your strong contender on the upside here, or are you watching for something else?
Manisha, if you remember, for the last 2 or 3 years, although I'm betting on nickel all the times, if you ask me on the base metal pack, which one commodity you choose in from the last 3 years have been pretty good. Means I think so. The last year was really bad for nickel. It was one of the worst performance. Nickel and zinc were the two commodities in the base metal pack, worst performance. But I think the demand going up for this particular commodity would do good for the commodity at the end of the year. It's trading at around 598 levels, if I'm not wrong, and expecting a target of around 650 to 655 by the end of the year.
A couple of bullish voices then coming in for the metal sector. But what's your sense on gold and how cautious are you onto that one? Because we still have those a very divided street on that really, because some people still talking about $1,000 per ounce, and then we've heard 1,300 on the higher side as well. What side are you bending? What's your sense in the Indian markets, especially with the excise duties coming in? And of course, the kind of discounts that we have seen going across, the way the rupee seems to be very volatile too. How would you approach this sector?
Manisha, the rupee is actually appreciating. If you see after the budget, 3 days rally, and we are seeing rupee against the dollar at around 67.30, if I'm not wrong. With the rupee appreciation, yes, the domestic markets may take a little beating, and we did saw that happening over a period of time. But overall, with the kind of positions the gold ETFs are building up, and the talks on the crude oil production freeze between OPEC countries, particularly Saudi and Russia, going around, there are expectations that the markets may be a little bit on the higher side for the inflationary expectations, and therefore we are seeing kind of a bounce back. But if you see the number of the kind of money which has gone, the inflows which have gone into the gold contracts on the ETF, approximately, if I'm not wrong, at around $7.9 billion, which is one of the highest after the financial crisis of 2008. So I think there has some kind of renewed interest coming into the precious metal, which is making the price on the precious metals on the upside, particularly gold. We are seeing at around $12.42 levels. India also is on the upside, therefore, because it's highly correlated to the international markets, minus the rupee factor, which is appreciating. But still, to go on the long side would be better for the intraday traders. So buy the April contract on the MCX at around 29,200, 250 levels. Put the stop loss for this trade at around 29,050, and targets on the upside can be seen in a range of around 29,450 or so.
All right, we hear you, Naveen, and it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming and giving us your strategies on all of those commodities. With that, let's go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the currency markets, where the rupee continues to rise and post the budget rally on the